Hello, my name is Raymond Karchevsky, and I am a living Christ. The subject I have for you today is titled "A Living Christ Says That It Is Time for a Peaceful Revolution." The call for action, this call for action, is being addressed to all who tire of the present unlawful de facto government, the tyranny that is being showered upon sovereign people of these United States of America. This de facto shadow government is not lawful, as it has surreptitiously replaced the original de jure government, the constitutional republic, through trickery and deceit. It has been allowed to continue and to degrade the American life only through the satanic mind control campaigns of government, religion, and corporate media operations, which, through their incessant and unending repetitive conditioning, have ensured the conditioned ignorance of its people, who have been reduced to slavery, to serfdom, and have lost just about everything that this once powerful nation held secure and sacred. I am writing this for you, the people of these United States of America, even though I am not subject to the corporate rule of the de facto government, as I follow God's law, not man's satanic law. And I have proven this by standing down the satanic laws of the Oregon court system, merely armed with the truth and God's law, which the satanic law, man's law, cannot overcome. Even satanic law recognizes the superiority of God's law, which in its essence is do no harm, and is reflected in their own statutory law, which states corporate administrative rules, regulations, and legislation do not apply to non-corporate natural people who stand in common law and in full legal capacity as one of the sovereign people. The law states there every man is independent of all laws except those prescribed by nature. He is not bound by any institutions that are formed by his fellow man without his consent. Cruden versus Neal, 2 NC 338, parentheses, 1796, close parentheses, 2 SE 70. The practical application of this peaceful revolution can be initiated by all people who use their private automobiles and other private travel conveyances for private travel when using the public roads, as long as they are not using such private conveyances for business, commerce, or industry. Hence, No driver license is required. This has been just one of the multi-billion, with a B, dollar fraudulent scams that the de facto government has employed to bilk the American people out of their assets and to control them through false arrests and incarceration, building up a false prison system merely to create a slave workforce. Now, my two websites, ArkEnterprises.com and LisaRayEnterprises.com, contain a massive body of evidence backed up by my own sworn affidavit, along with the usual internet search engines which have chronicled the 20-year span of this living Christ's persecution of this living man by government and media intelligence communities, libelous disinformation campaigns. This was backed up by the fact that no federal, state, or county law enforcement agency will investigate the criminal complaints filed by this living Christ with them, which have been repeated complaints since 1997. This is how the government really works. Not the PR stuff that you hear. This is what really goes on. I have challenged every news source and investigative agency, both government and non-government alike, and I charge them with the responsibility to notify the public of the existence of the issues that I have faced the courts and government of Oregon in standing down the satanic institutions which promise law but deliver chaos. You see, although I have through the years made many requests, many demands actually of the law enforcement agencies to investigate this issue, none have complied. It is as though they have erected a stone wall of silence, and one can hear the sounds of crickets in that stone wall of silence that has been erected around the existence of this living Christ. They do not want you to know that I exist, and the history of my experiences with the courts of Oregon. It has exposed the courts for what they are. And these are the institutions that have you completely buffaloed, completely under mind control, where you fear them. There is nothing to fear. You see, the Oregon government, its courts, and the law enforcement agencies in Oregon sought to imprison me for 40 years on trumped-up charges. Yet they released me with no charges hanging over my head, hanging over the head of this living man, when I refused to accept their contract of sentencing. After the fictional courts, with their fictional judges, and their fictional lawyers, who had cooperated in finding the fictitious defendant, juristic person, guilty in 2 trials, yet they could not link this living man to their fictitious guilty defendant in both trials. And some 22 plus hearings, they would not answer the questions of jurisdiction. They have steadfastly refused to prove that jurisdiction over this living man. For no fictional institution, such as government, or fictional person, such as a judge, has jurisdiction over any living man or woman. Yet this scam has been played out for years. Now, I have no driver license, and I have not had one since the year 1999. I am a traveler. I am not a driver, you see. And therefore I, nor any other private man or woman, is required to have a license, nor do I seek permission from my servant government to move about in my environment. I am, and what may be known as a free man, a sovereign. That has become a dirty word. The courts, law enforcement, have tried to demonize that word, sovereign. I stand a sovereign, and they can do nothing about it. And for those of you who understand who you truly are, you have that ability too. They work for you. You are not their slaves, unless you consent to such slavery through citizenship or contracting with the government, thereby waiving your unalienable rights. The links below, I am not going to bring them up in this talk because there's just too many of them, but they summarize the issue quite nicely, and you may find them on my websites, arkenterprises.com or lisarayenterprises.com, under the title of this talk. I have summarized the issues of the sovereign's ability to travel, and a voluminous library of events can be secured and researched by any serious journalist or investigator in the world as to the veracity of this living Christ's testimony in this issue, upon which the question is whether we are slaves or we are sovereigns, hang in the balance. I have served the purposes for which I was born to serve in this lifetime, and it is to awaken a satanically controlled people who have been made to doubt themselves and to believe that they are slaves, useless eaters, owned and tyrannized by their own public servants, whom they support and finance through their own misguided consent. Pay attention to those links when you come to them, for they are truth. I stand behind all of them with my own sworn affidavit. I have held Oregon Governor Kate Brown, along with countless other Oregon public officials, equally accountable for their criminal activity, their malfeasance, and official misconduct, by demanding their own rebuttal, accompanied by their own personal sworn affidavit, based on their own unlimited commercial liability. I have done this through the use of UCC liens. They've all defaulted. Not one answered the questions of jurisdiction. And they are in default at the present time to the tune of $40 million. And there is a statewide cover-up of the Secretary of State's office, who have removed these liens, which have a life of 99 years and can only be removed by the man or woman who files such liens. Yet they have put together the full power of their government in trying to remove all evidence of these liens. Yet they cannot. It is up to you to realize who holds the power of life in America. Is it the sovereign people, or is it the public servants whom you hire and pay to serve you, the sovereign? Now this overly demonstrable criminal cover-up activity and their steadfast corporate and personal refusal to answer the questions of whether any fictional government, courts, law enforcement entities, or any faceless bureaucrats have jurisdiction over any living man or woman who does not consent to granting jurisdiction over to the corporate government. As said in the criminal case Cruden versus Neal, which has been mentioned earlier. In all this time, we, the people, find that the power lies with us. We are the real government. And when we understand that, we can start incarcerating the real criminals, those who will not even follow their own satanically written laws, those who have betrayed their public oaths to serve, protect, and defend the Constitution and the people that they have pledged to serve and protect. You and I. Now, how do we, the sovereign people, take back our government? We do it by acting like the sovereigns that we are. Take back your right to travel. Hold your public officials accountable with UCC liens. The power to create your own life lies in your own hands. It has always been so, and it shall always be so for those who have awakened out of their satanically enslaving slumber. This is the Christ solution to liberation from satanic law. Start out by acting like a man and not a groveling slave. when all the living men and women realize that they have been conned into consenting to commercial driver licenses in order to travel non-commercially, the satanic walls of government shall come tumbling down. Peace on earth shall begin here in these United States of America and will spread throughout the world, dissolving any chances for a new world order, a satanic new world order. And instead it shall establish a new world consciousness ushered in by the second coming of Christ. For those of you who need the substance of evidence to research for yourselves, you may find this on my website, arkenterprises.com. All of the links are there, and they speak for themselves. And as I say, I shall back each and every one of them with my sworn affidavit. You see, this is the issue now. For the last 13 years, actually, with the government of Oregon, where they have refused to answer the questions of jurisdiction and have therefore defaulted, commercially defaulted, as individuals, as persons, as fictional persons. I have no intention, really, of harming anyone. I am directly challenging the state of Oregon and the county of Josephine for the acts of their agents. And I shall not quit until my dying day, or until we come to an apology, withdrawal of all phony criminal charges against this living man, and a settlement. I address this to Governor Kate Brown and to all of the subservient managers and directors of the various enforcement agencies. I will not go away. I understand that you are a fraud, and I will hold you to that until my dying day. To all of you others who are listening to this vicariously, spread this far and wide so that it doesn't get censored. As most of my articles and most of my YouTubes are being censored. The views, the numbers of the views are being tampered with. This is all part of the control that those in charge have over your minds, and you're not even aware of it. Well, I'm making you aware of it, and I'm charging you with finding the backbone that you seem to have lost. Let us hold this government accountable and let devil take the hindmost. Thank you for your time.